Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee Books and Rain. I'm Rachel, and I did have to switch out my coffee, so if you see some other videos where I'm wearing this particular outfit, then you will see that I had a hot cup previously. I now have a cold cup because when I went to go get a refill, I was out and I had to switch to the cold brew that I made. It was in the fridge. But anyway, it's just oat milk and cold brew, and it's pretty tasty, so we are enjoying it. And we are also reviewing books. And the book that I want to talk to you guys about is The Hearth Witch's Guide to Magic and Murder by Kiri Callahan. And this is the Hemlock Saga #1. So, I picked this book up because I really thought anything that's going to be cozy, fun, mystery, witchy was going to be perfect for the September-October kind of time period. I was right. Now, this does not have to be read specifically at the Halloween spooky season, but it just happens to be about the time when it's due for release of October 7th. So I'm going to try to release this, within the week of October 7th. I had so many books due around October 7th that I am still trying to get them all recorded and then published. But let's dive into the summary before we talk about my thoughts. For all intents and purposes, we are still blissfully separated from the mortals, but there have been complications. When a rise in London's supernatural crime puts Fae society at risk of discovery, the Winter Council turns to an unlikely solution: Avery Hemlock, the changeling that was sentenced to 500 years of nightmares. Inherently lacking social grace and missing approximately 200 centuries of knowledge, Avery must find a way to acclimate to and solve the case or lose her probationary freedom. After being left at the altar and dropping out of medical school, Saga Trigg attempts to rekindle her faith in life, humanity, and witchcraft. But when her new neighbor, Avery, accidentally reveals that Fae have been living among humanity all along, Saga realizes magic is more than prayers, intentions, and candles. Each faced with navigating an unfamiliar world, the two form an unexpected partnership. But shortly into Avery's investigation, they discover the threat might be closer to Saga than either of them imagined, and Avery will do anything to protect the first friend she's had in more than 200 years. Now, it is considered fantasy, cozy mystery, witches, fiction, and adult. And I had so much fun with this book. I loved it and I couldn't put it down. Now, my biggest probably concern with this book is that it's 446 pages. It was girthy. And it, I still kind of, a little bug, but I still flew through it pretty quick because I really couldn't put it down. But I don't think it needed to be that long. That's my personal thought. Especially if this is going to be book #1 in a forthcoming series. I'm excited, but I do think some of the information could have been saved for future books, and we could have had reveals a little bit later. Now, I did mention it's going to be published October 7th of 2025, and it is #1 in the Hemlock Saga series. Now, funny enough, of course, we have Avery Hemlock and Saga Trigg, so the Hemlock Saga. Fun. Now, one of the other things I want to make mention is they definitely play on the idea of Sherlock and Watson. How, may you ask, do they play on the Sherlock and Watson duo? Well, of course, you have a duo. And they one lives at 221B Baker Street. One seems to live at 221A Baker Street. They are next door neighbor. Well, I guess one is above the other, where potentially Miss Hudson would have lived. Saga is definitely a descendant of the Hudsons, and I do believe her aunt is potentially a Hudson. So, yes, it is still owned by the Hudsons. And there is a Hudson cafe that Saga seems to work at, and she is a really good baker from what it seems. Fun thing about this book that I love is there are recipes in the back. So once you get to the end of the book, you get to find the lemon tart with the Earl Grey or lavender Earl Grey whipped cream. There is like a homemade caramel because there's like a apple caramel German pancake back there. Gosh, there was another heartbreak tea, I think was one of them. There were a couple of recipes back there, and I kind of wanted to screenshot them so I could go back to them later, but I haven't done that yet. I love when a book has recipes. It makes me so excited, but I don't know why. One of my favorite things. So that gave it an extra half star in my book, but I gave this book, I'm going to give it 5 stars. I haven't reviewed it yet on Goodreads or NetGalley, but I plan to do that probably tomorrow. I will definitely go ahead and round it up to 5 stars. It's not perfect, but it's very close. And go ahead and tell you that I'd probably give it a 4.5 stars, if not like 4.65 stars. It's a good one. So, we first meet Avery, who has been kind of in this Fae prison for approximately 200 years. At this particular time, we do not fully know what her crime was, other than it was some sort of treason. So, this individual, Gideon Blackthorn, I think? Gideon, he shows up, he says, okay, we're releasing her, and they're like, okay. So he goes in, they wake her up, because she's trapped in like this 500-year nightmare, and so he pulls her out of that, does a particular spell, pulls her out of it, and she's like, oh, has it been 500 years already? He's like, no, it's only been 2, but we need you. Apparently, she's a very good investigator, and so that's another little bit of nugget towards the Sherlock and Watson duo, is that she is kind of the Sherlock, a little bit aloof, kind of disconnected from humanity, very smart in putting things together, but Watson, Saga, seems to do about 90% of the legwork. Just saying. She also, Saga, has a bit of medical knowledge as well. She did go to medical school. Apparently she finished or almost finished her first foundation year. I'm not certain what that is, but it sounds like she made it pretty significantly through. And now she's just working at this bakery trying to figure out her life at this particular point. Well, so part of Avery's release, parole, probationary kind of, what do they call it? Like, part of the stipulation is that they need her help to solve this case, which seems to be Fae related. A body has come into the morgue. This individual who was in a car accident, it was a single person car accident, apparently was not wearing a seatbelt, which is, completely understandable, but her brain was missing. No previous sign of cuts or sutures or any sort of previous removal of the brain. However, when this person's body made it to the medical college where she had donated her body to upon her death, the students cut into her, as would happen if you have done this particular, donation of your body to science, and found that her brain, again, missing, was completely replaced with some wheat and other herbs, such as like turmeric and ginseng and all this sort of stuff were like stuffed in there. And her brain was just gone. So that's when, I guess, the Fae realm steps in. It's because they're like, well, this seems a little suspicious. So fair enough. So Avery's like, well, that's very weird. So now they have put her into this, almost like this apartment, and Saga just happens to be her downstairs neighbor. So now they're close proximity to each other. I will kind of argue that I'm a little Saga has only been out of her previous relationship where her heart was absolutely demolished. This guy, Hugh, who was a bastard, let's call him a spade, he pursued her, he wooed her, she finally kind of fell for it. They go ahead, they plan the wedding, and Hugh leaves her at the altar for a childhood sweetheart. So she is shattered. She's absolutely shattered. Girl, I felt you on that one. I have had two situations like that. I have not been left at the altar, but I have had two situations where someone has pursued me hardcore and then ghosted. After like a significant amount of time too. Just wild. But anyway, I was commiserating with her on that one. I was like, I totally get it. What I don't get is that we are now 3 months later. Saga is still absolutely traumatized by this whole situation. And yet she's starting to let herself fall for Avery as the story progresses. And I'm just like, this is way too soon. You do not need to rebound this fast. So I kind of wish we had saved some of this romantic interest for future books. That is my only issue. I think that's why it's not perfect for me right now, is I do not feel Saga was anywhere ready for any sort of crush or potential relationship at this point. I could be totally wrong. I could be way off base, and that is fine. It is a fictional story. I get it. But girl, after I went through that, I hated everybody. Like, everybody could could just stay away. But anyway, that's my own trauma. I will not talk about that. Back to Avery and Saga. So they start bonding, and of course, accidentally, Saga gets kind of pulled into this mystery. Now, she doesn't know too much at this particular point, but she's starting to find out a couple of things about her family that she didn't know about. And so Saga believes, and I think she prays to Brigitte. And so she's a believer of her, like, of the faith. It's just not Christianity. And so she is kind of a little bit a hedge witch, a hearth witch, what have you. They don't say it outright in the story. They say she comes from a line or a lineage with witches, very powerful witches, but they don't ever call her one, and that is fine. She does believe in the power of herbs and food as medicine, and doing good for others. So all very good things, which I really liked. But what I wasn't a big fan of was the fact that they never, like, they said, yeah, you come from this. And so then the book is titled A Hearth Witch's Guide. And I'm like, but we never actually established her being a hearth witch. Like, what if she's not quite a hearth witch, but what if she's like a hedge witch? What if she's a different kind of witch and not a hearth witch? I don't know. And see, Avery, she's also not a hearth witch. She's a changeling. So she's part fae. I'm not going to give like too many spoilers or anything, because the story does get really good. We do ultimately figure out why Avery was imprisoned. We find out about Saga's trauma with regards to her previous relationship and how much it shattered her. We also find out about Saga's trauma with her own mother. Apparently her mother is let's just call her a witch, but it should be a bee. Because her mother is a non-believer, and her mother is like a logical robot with no emotional connections whatsoever. And so she treats Saga like garbage. And I'm just like, this woman, if I was Saga, I would have gone no contact so fast that like her head would spin. But that was me. This was me being very emotional. I do wear a lot of my emotions on my sleeve in a given moment. I was so angry for Saga at her mother. I was just like, this woman can go. I will punch her. Or make her trip and she can like hit her face on the floor. Something. I just, something. That's where my little vindictive side came in. But anyway, let's just say a lot of things happen around Saga during this particular time. We do get to see a couple of Avery's friends pop up along the way. Frenemies, if you will. And so we do get to see her connection to the Fae world. We do learn that Gideon, this is not a spoiler, I'm just going to let you know, Gideon is her half-brother. So there seems to be a bit of, like, it's not love hate. They do seem to actually appreciate each other, and there is a bit of sibling bonding going on, which I'm a fan of. I do wish it was just a little more, but of course I think Gideon's more full fae and she is a little more of changeling. And I'm not certain if they are relating a changeling specifically to half fae, half mortal, because I thought a changeling, at least based on my previous readings of various fae books, of course all being fiction, that a changeling was a fae baby that was left in the place of a human baby and thus grows up while the human baby's taken back to, the fae realm. Like, that's what I thought a changeling was a fae baby that was left in the place of a human baby. And so it grows up thinking it's human, but also kind of like not quite human. I'm not sure. This makes it seem as though potentially a changeling is half fae, half human. One of the other things this book does that's fantastic is uses words and then gives a footnote to explain what that word is. I like that. I really enjoy having some of these more folklorish words from other languages, words from other cultures thrown in, because we do have characters from various cultures throughout the story. And we have other kind of, I guess you could call them witchcraft terms, pagan terms, if you will, that are also scattered throughout. And the footnotes help you figure out what that means without bogging down the text to explain it. So I was a fan of that as well. Overall, I love this story. I will 100% be picking up the next one. And I think you should too. If you like witches, if you like magic, if you like found family and just family in general, because minus her mom, her aunts are fantastic. Other members of her family are fantastic. I'm not going to mention the grandma, and there's reasons for that. Her grandma, a good person. And the reason I'm dancing around that is reasons. You got to read it to figure it out, I guess. But with all of that being said, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. If you have not liked and subscribed already, I hope you will consider it. And I will see you all on the next page. Have a great one. Bye.